Peace, family. Welcome back to another episode of Sins of the Father. I'm your host, Ani I Am, and this is another episode, man. I know I've been gone for a little minute, just dealing with a lot of things. You know, life is always testing you, putting you through challenges to see how strong you are. And sometimes, you know, we gotta take a step back to reassess and really figure out where we are and where we stand with things, right? So, you know, these last few, maybe week or so since the holidays, been really kind of tough, you know. And I just was wondering to myself, like, you know, what and how does a lot of our past regressions show up? How do they show up in interactions with people that we love? People that, you know, we feel we should be able to work out things with and talk to. You know, how does those regressions manifest in this particular time I'm talking about our personal relationships. So whether that be a wife, whether that be a husband, you know, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever that is, you know, how does those traumas show up? How does those unanswered, unresolved, repressed feelings show up when trying to deal with another individual, trying to be, thinking that you're being honest, open, loving? How does that show up? What is the challenge like? You know, where are the challenges at? You know what I mean? And what I found is that over these last couple of weeks is that they show up in the worst way. They show up in denial. They show up with not being able to be vulnerable and open to possibilities of ulterior outcomes or another way to look at something, right? We start feeling like our way is the only way, and we get stuck in that feeling. We get stuck in that paradigm of thought without realizing that, you know, another individual with their own experiences, their own traumas, their own unanswered or unresolved issues, even not even going all the way back to child, but what about just past relationships, you know? And they carrying whatever it is that happened to them in that past relationship, they carrying that to you or to me, you know? And we doing the same. So I don't want to make us, you know, sound like we're not responsible for that or we're not a part of that, because we're doing that as well. We're just carrying on with it. And I'm just wondering, like, all right, when does that cycle stop? What needs to happen for that cycle to stop, to no longer manage or direct how we're responding in these, you know, these social moments? Because I found myself in a very uncomfortable situation, which I'd love to share with you guys at some point. You know, it's just gonna come to, it's really difficult for me, it's a lot. But at some point, you know, I was dealing with a very uncomfortable situation, and I was trying to see it my way, or I was only seeing it my way. And I said to myself, I have to really think about it and say, well, is there another way? Is there other ways? And, you know, I went through the notion, nope. Ran down the list of things, nope, it's not me, I'm straight, like everything is good with me. But in reality, you know, I think it's necessary to a certain degree to be able to consider another side. Being able to consider that I'm not 100% in the right as much as I may think I am sometimes, right? And I'm not saying I'm in the wrong all the time. I'm just saying that sometimes there's a middle ground, but not being able to deal with your emotions in a mature way, not being able to, you know, communicate in a mature way sometimes stops that. Not being able to even identify when you are being selfish or immature or one-sided can also become detrimental to a relationship and the communication in the relationship will suffer because of that. And this is what I found. And I found that even though in my maturity, right, in my what I would call evolved state, I can, I think that I'm doing much better. And I would say, yes, I'm doing much better. But I would say at the same time, then I'm looking at someone else who's involved in this whole thing, and I'm saying, well, are you better? Are you evolving? Are you able to see the truth of certain things? Are you taking into consideration how your past relationships, your unresolved issues are affecting me or are coming across to me? Are you being empathetic to what we're dealing with or what maybe I am dealing with, And I realize when you find yourself in those hard situations, you go into a protective shell. Sometimes, some people, I would say, me, let me talk about me, right? You go into a protective shell and you're so busy trying to protect yourself that you block out any truth, any empathy, any softness, anything that would invalidate how I want to feel. I block it out. I go into this shell of I have to protect myself against what I feel is an attack. And 9 times out of 10, the person that you love is really, and I won't say never, but most times the people are not really trying to attack you, right? They're just trying to express themselves, and it feels like an attack because it's a challenge to your pre-conditioned mindset, right? And this is where I say that a lot of times, because of the fact that we haven't taken the time to do the work and understand where certain things are coming from and why, then we keep in this pace. So for me, it's just been like a real stressful situation, just in the fact that I wanted to have been better, right? I wanted to do it better. I wanted to be wiser. I wanted to be more mature. But I don't think that I was. I don't think that I was mature as I wanted to be. And I still, for whatever reason, I still think that I was right? I still believe I was right. I still believe I had right on my side, but is being right always right? It's probably a good way to say it. Is being right always the right thing to do? Because sometimes maybe being right doesn't mean being right now. Right? It makes sense? Being right may not be worth it to be right now. It may be better to just hold my opinion or feeling for another time when leveler heads could prevail, right? And I think that sometimes, again, we have these protective measures that are real. Like, we can't, pretend that they don't exist, or pretend that they don't shape how we move and react sometimes to perceived threats. And sometimes, like I said, perceived, and I've used that word purposely because sometimes they just perceive and it's really not even a threat. Sometimes the person just wants to be heard, And this could be between a father and a daughter, husband and a wife, brother and a sister, And I think that we do a lot more harm than good to be stuck in that stance. We do a lot more harm than good to be stuck in anything that is not of mutual benefit to everyone involved. Now, I know that's a hard thing because sometimes you think you are doing the best by telling the truth, right? Or I think I am doing the best I can do by telling the truth, or by telling my truth, because that's another thing that we got to be careful of. I'm telling my truth because my truth gets me out of taking responsibility of certain things sometimes. Again, these are other things that I think are somewhat connected, and I'm going to do that research for y'all. And I want to say this, that, you know, I'm going to be doing a lot more research, because I think that in order for me to bring value to the family, right, I have to bring y'all solutions, not just what I'm going through, and not just maybe some of my insight, which I believe is valid, but for the most part, I really believe that I need to be able to bring viable, credible solutions that have been applied, true, tried, and tested, and not just what I think, which is, you know, again, this is an exchange of ideas, and I hope that, you know, some people do find some value out of it and do find some connection from it. And I hope you see the better part, or maybe learn from my mistake. You know, I hope you see the better part of what I'm saying and not feed into the negativity, you know, because that's not my purpose. My purpose is to actually grow. I always say this: I want to learn, I want to understand, I want to be wiser, I want to be more healthy, I want to be in healthier relationships with my friends, with my family, and the people that I love. You know, even with my children, you know, which I struggle with, because I think that they get the brunt of my unresolved issues as well. I kind of like unresolved issues more than trauma. I think trauma keeps us in trauma. When we say it's unresolved, that means that we can resolve it. And that's what I want to do. I want to resolve these issues. I want to resolve these shortcomings. You know, I don't want to sit and make it trauma, because trauma just sounds like it's too hard to get over. Like, it's trauma, gee, I'm never going to get over that. Or, it's trauma, like, God, Lee, God damn, I'm never going to move past that. And I really want to make sure that we don't get stuck on nothing. Like, everything about this is about evolution. It's about moving forward and evolving past our lower state and moving to a higher state, moving to a higher awareness, a higher consciousness about who we are and what power and control we have over changing the dynamics of things that we don't appreciate, that we don't like. You know, and I just been realizing that, like I said, over this past, you know, week or so, 2 weeks, you know, how much my unresolved issues are affecting those people around me, people that I care about, that I really care about. It's affecting them. And in my own, for lack of a better term, ignorance, I haven't been able to move past it. So even though I can identify it, I don't know how to switch it on and off sometimes, especially when I'm in a, you know, in a moment where I'm in an emotional moment, I'm in a feeling moment, and my feelings are heightened, because now what I'm doing is I am reacting to my emotions as opposed to controlling how I react to my emotions. Or I'm either trying to control my emotions instead of reacting or controlling how I react to my emotions, which I think is where the real power is at. Even just the accountability of a thing gives you power over it, right? If I can be accountable to the fact that, hey, I'm doing this, let's stop it, that is power. Because in that moment, I'm identifying a shortcoming and I'm able to change it. And if I consistently use that behavior and then check myself, I can begin to start developing a framework to be able to say, every time I see that, I can kind of say, no, all right, stop, don't do it. And I think that's what I'm working towards, but it's going to require me to understand more of these triggers and when they come. Like, what does a person have to say to me for me to be triggered? What has to happen for me to feel like I'm triggered, like I have to react? What has to happen, or what happens that reminds me of something unconsciously, not consciously, but unconsciously? What reminds me of something that was happened to me before? And automatically I go into a protective mode, or I go into all these different modes that have been identified by professionals, whether it be disconnect, whether it be fight or flight, whether it be people pleasing, whether it be, getting aloof, whether it means, you know, going into a shell, whether it means retracting, whether it means shrinking my light, whatever those things are, I need to be able to identify them in each particular instance and immediately change it, just as a discipline, change it, so that I have that power, right? And that's what I'm working on. Like I said, family, I'm going to be presenting and bringing more solutions, because we gotta solve this. We gotta resolve these repressed issues. These unresolved issues need to be resolved. And as long as they stay unresolved, we will always be reactive to things that we don't even know the nature or the essence of which they come, which leaves us in a much more disadvantaged situation. We can't even be our true light. We can't even shine our true light, because at any moment we could be triggered by something and we respond to it, right? And I want to avoid that. And I want to avoid that not only for myself, but for anybody that can relate to this journey, which I'm almost 100% certain that every single person can relate. There's not a person that can't, because this is a universal thing. I know I'm not the only person that, got busted upside his head when he was a kid, or mother and father had their own ideologies that weren't really the best for me, right? So, just being real, I know I'm not the only one. So I know it's people like that. And I just want to help as many people as I can. And I pray that, anything I said gives you a level of awareness, helps you to observe yourself in a much more conscious light, so that you can correct certain behaviors and resolve those unresolved issues of the past. I want to thank you for just tapping in with me and talking with me for a little bit. Again, I pray and from the sincere part of my heart, I pray that you find peace, love, and healing in this journey. Again, peace, love, and healing in this journey. And I appreciate you. Thank you for tapping into another episode of Sins of the Father. Please, if you felt if there's anything about this you like, please like, subscribe,